Hello and welcome to the shop. I'm Jared and this is the Questionable Garage. And hidden pretty well behind me is our 1970 Plymouth Duster that we are building to do something no one has ever attempted before. Because they're sane. It takes someone very, very questionable in the head to even attempt it. We are trying to build this car to take to the Holley LS Fest, Holley Mo Party, and Holley Intergalactic Ford Fest and compete in Grand Champion at all three, which means there's 3 engines in 3 different weeks, and it's a lot to do, because I don't want to show up and just do little parade laps. We want to be as competitive as possible. And if you recall in the last episode, as we were preparing to put our Hemi in, our 6.1 SRT8 Hemi that we would find in the SRT Cherokees, the 300Cs, just a decent number of vehicles, we found something very surprising when the oil pan came off. It's not a stock engine at all. It has at least $6,000 worth of upgrades and appears to be a 7-liter stroker engine, which is pretty insane. You know, you never know what you're getting in a used engine. But we've got that bolted in. We've got our brand new floor, of course, cut up. But before we can even think about trying to start the thing, we've got to stay cool and get some gas. I pretty much always have gas, but at any rate, we are going to try to tackle getting our cooling system installed and plumbed up to the Hemi, as well as our new fuel system installed and run front to back to the vehicle, because as it stands, there is no plumbing in the vehicle at all. We have a very bare shell, and we are doing the Hemi first because that is the engine that's going to go back in at the end of all the events. Our plan is to keep the Hemi in it, so it's what matters most. We want to make sure the plumbing is as clean as possible and fits it, best, because that's what's going to stay there long term. Now, one thing you may notice is this radiator is already kind of slightly cut on the brackets a little bit to fit. One, I wanted to make sure that it was going to fit in our core support. There's not a direct application for, what we're doing. And Holley was kind of like, do you mind showing a little less butchering of our parts, in your videos? It's a matter of, I do a lot of things there's not a catalog application for, and their parts normally fit very, very well. I just don't ever, order the right part for the application because I want the biggest possible cooling I can get. So I've got a Camaro radiator for my A-body, Mopar, that's gonna have a Gen 3 Hemi, an LS3, and a Coyote. None of it makes sense. But before we get into building the car, I want to revisit a topic that we've talked about in the past and is something I find incredibly important, and that is your mental health. It is something that us as guys are told to just grin and bear it, tough it. You're not a man if you ever need to ask for help. I'm turning 40 this year, and I want to be very honest and blunt with you. You're 100% a man if you need to ask for help. It's something I've personally done. It's something my family has done. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's where I'm going to take a second to tell you about today's paid partner, BetterHelp, someone that I am a personal customer of and believe 100% in. Now, if you have ever tried traditional therapy in the past, you know it can sometimes be cumbersome and a big barrier to entry. And that is where BetterHelp is looking to revolutionize the entire industry. Normally you'd have to drive, find a therapist, see if you even connect with them, because that is probably the most important part of therapy, is finding someone that you can relate to or at least feel comfortable talking to. You have to be able to tell them how you genuinely feel so they're able to help give you some of the tools to cope with those emotions. With BetterHelp, you go online, you answer some simple questions about yourself and what some of your goals are out of therapy, and they pair you with one of their licensed therapists. Once you are matched, you're able to set up and talk with them however you feel comfortable. If you feel better with video calls, phone calls, or just email and text, you're able to communicate the way that works best for you. You don't have to cut out time in your day to drive to a therapy office. Just whatever is convenient to you is how you're able to reach out. And if you ever find that that therapist and you are just not jiving, it's super simple and easy to get paired with a new one. No hard feelings. You're able to get paired with someone who's going to help teach you the tools you need to deal with whatever's going on in your life. It's about learning how to deal with those emotions, learn coping skills, and just genuinely be better equipped to deal with whatever life throws at you. Let me be honest, sometimes it throws a lot at you. If you're ready to go ahead and give BetterHelp a try and just work on learning some tools to better cope with what life is throwing at you, click the link in the description below, betterhelp.com/questionablegarage. Not only does it help support the channel, you save 10% off your first therapy session. If you guys, sliced a finger off, you wouldn't hesitate to go to the hospital and get some help. Struggling with emotions is just as real as, a missing digit. So don't be afraid, reach out, get the help you need, and live the best life you can. BetterHelp.com/questionablegarage, you can save 10% off your first month. And again, it's all about making sure you're living your best life.
Now, getting our cooling system put together, we have got our twin electric fans. I have got the fan shroud in position. Now, with this Frostbite fan shroud kit, you do have to drill your own holes and get things set up, so I went ahead, laid them out the way I wanted on the cooling fan side, and drilled the holes and used some of my own hardware. Something you see me doing here is cutting out 2 rectangles in the fan shroud. That's to help with at-speed cooling, where electric fans can actually become a restriction. So you cut out these trap doors and we will put a chunk of rubber over the top of them, so while you're traveling at high speed, the rubber will deflect and let airflow move around, but at low speeds will seal off and keep those fans pulling air through the radiator. With my trap doors cut out and my fans bolted on, it's time to go ahead and install the fan shroud to the radiator. And in my application, I don't have quite all the traditional brackets, so I am drilling 4 holes and then riveting it to the radiator itself. Now, the fuel sending unit that's set with most of these tank retrofit kits is a universal thing. They give you formulas to math out and measure and cut and set everything up. And that's what I'm doing here. I've measured the depth of my tank, length of arms, and I'm just kind of cutting and removing and installing pieces as required. When you're putting your fuel pump hanger together, again, make sure you follow the instructions, measure, make sure you get the right depth. You want your fuel pump sitting as close to the bottom as possible to maximize its ability to pick up fuel, but if you make it too long, you can actually pinch off the fuel and not be able to pick up any fuel. Or, again, if you make it too short, you're gonna have a couple inches and a couple gallons that you're not able to use in your gas tank.
All right, we went straight from BetterHelp right into working because there's tremendous amount to do. We've got that cooling system started to fit into the car. We got the fan shroud all mounted up, and now you know why you need shutters in a cooling fan. If you just have fans, nowhere else for air to pass, you can have overheating problems. And I'm kind of on a small holding pattern on the fuel tank. I need a couple fittings that I got the wrong size of, and I want some Hylamar. Hylamar is a sealant, I'll be able to show you when I get it, that works really good in fuel and cork gaskets. It was originally developed, if I remember correctly, for a Rolls-Royce jet engine. It's designed for a lot of vibration. It's extraordinarily chemical resistant and can handle like separating and reconnecting and not lose a seal. So I want to do that with my cork gaskets on the fuel tank. So we got to get that stuff, but man, it's kind of cool starting to see this thing to come together. We got some wires dangling, like it's becoming a car. I got our fuel tank straps in place. Now, our kit did not come with new bolts, and you can order new bolts for not very much for this car. I didn't have time, so a fun other little trick, you can get some eye bolts and just cut the ends off, or you can get some carriage bolts, and if you heat them up, basically the factory J bolts are a carriage bolt heated up and bent right about there. So you can do that. You can do eye bolts. You can do some all thread if you wanted, heat it up and bend it as well. You basically just need something to just bind in there so when the strap gets tight, it pinches in. So I figured while we're waiting for some parts, let me show you a really big parts car that we got. We were talking about it at the end of the last episode. See, I need my flathead so we can actually investigate it. I had to buy an entire other car to get the things I'm missing. Two of the really big things are hood and trunk. Surprisingly hard to find for a 70 Duster, but I finally found a whole car. What is going on with my glass? But yeah, we finally ended up with just an entire car for a couple parts. Now, I know a lot of you were kind of upset at the idea that I was going to cut up the New Yorker sitting over there in the back of the junkyard. I got too much crap right now. I don't know if you'll be as upset. All I've done is loaded this on the trailer. I'm not going to do a single thing to this trunk. All the dents. I love like this kind of Wild West, you know, pinstriping going on it. We come around. It's kind of a cool graphic setup. The hood carries on. It's got a little bit more of it. But the main thing is it's the right 71 hood. We've got a few more grill parts that we needed. We've got wiring that we needed. We have a steering column that we desperately needed. In theory, there's most of an interior in here. I don't think that we need that very much, but I want to get inside this trunk and show you something. So, you know how you go. You just... no? Ah, there we go. My flatheads had the wrong bitting. Hi guys. Yeah, this one's in a little bit rougher shape. Let me pick you up off the ground and show you. So hopefully no one is going to be too upset at the prime prospect of this thing being cut up. You know, even the good parts are rusty, but it matches kind of the look I'm going for. But this right here, that is your frame. Your spring here should be down, you know, many more inches than that. There's your fuel float. This is your fuel tank right here. It's gone. No more. You're not mad at me, right? We're cutting this up for a good reason. Like, my car needs these parts and this thing's toast. There we go. Can't remember. There we go. Safety, safety. You know, hood's in pretty good shape. As you can tell, it has an engine that I do not enjoy at all. I know some of you absolutely love these things. This, in theory, was running, but then it has no plug wires on it. So, I don't know how true that is. One of the big things that I needed from this, wiper motor and transmission, I was able to move them. So, those are potentially good. It's got a more intact wiring harness. It's still going to need a little bit of work. Maybe this wiper motor works. I do know the interior is fairly complete, whereas mine was... Hey, there we go. Stripped out. You know, if you take a look, whatever you imagine this smell, just double it. At any rate, we've got the climate control box that we can rebuild. We got an 8-track player. I don't know how much, if none of this is any good. Steering column I really needed, although I may end up with a full aftermarket. We got a Sun Pro temp gauge. Like, we are ready to go racing with this. I haven't even inspected the floors. Let's see. Yep, those are good. I'm gonna go pick up some fuel fittings, and we're gonna kind of bounce between working on new parts. We're gonna be cutting some stuff out of this, and keep building us a race car. All right, we've got our fuel tank set up here, and if you notice, we have got the sender already down. I wasn't able to get my Hylamar that I really like using, but in the instructions, it's really messy, but Holley did recommend the Permatex shellac compound. This is from Indian Motorcycles, and it's somewhat similar to Hylamar, except it dries a little bit harder, but they might more or less just say it's impervious to everything. And I've got gloves on for this time because I did it without gloves, and it kind of looks like I got that 1990s spray-on tan and then immediately went swimming. Like, this stuff stains your skin. So I got everything kind of set up. The way they want you to do it is apply it to all your surfaces. So we'll do a little bit to the metal, both sides of the cork, and then this side of the metal. Just get ready to make a mess. Good news is no one will ever see this, right?
except literally all of you. At least this stuff really doesn't smell either. Like I was trying to... Okay, no, I'm lying. There's the whiff of it. It smells like a little bit of solvent and then like an artificial walnut. So whether they want to be a problem or not, we still got to get a fuel tank in here. I will get these started and then we will, surprise, surprise, actually torque them too. It's a little easier on the sending unit here. I ran into a lot of problem fighting on the fuel pump hanger. It kind of just wants to do one thing, but... So, this is a really fine dial torque wrench, and I actually use it predominantly for setting up pinion preload. We're going to zero it out. So now I can come in here. And there it goes. Alright, next up, we got some insulators. So an A-body Mopar, they have this big felt thing that nobody had in stock. And I want to get plumbing done because I have 2 more engines to fit and start. So, while I was down at Summit, I picked up Auto Metal Direct's anti-rattle squeak kit. The biggest thing is just trying to keep metal from chafing. We've got these straps that will fit on your tank straps. You got some cushioning foam, and then these strips here. And what I'm going to do with these, just in areas like this, we'll cut and glue a couple sections on it and a couple down here, and it just gives a little bit of vibration cushion. We will let that cure up, and then we can finally get some lines going in this car. Also, I'm going to put the connector on. Finally start plumbing. What an adventure to get to this point.
So, with all of the rubber glued down to keep the tank from rattling and the fuel pump hat bolted down with the correct fittings in it, it was time to go ahead and get it plumbed and ready to go into the car. First step was real quick, just putting a nice simple 2-pin connector on it so you don't have to do butt connectors or spade connectors. It is like a factory, fancy, nice, connector. Also, once it's inside, visibility of the wire color is going to be a little tricky, so a real simple trick, grab you a red Sharpie, mark your positive side red, and a black Sharpie, mark your ground side black. It's going to make it a little bit easier when you're just taking a glance and wiring up the rest of your car. The fuel hose we're installing here is Earl's Vapor Guard. It's one that I really like to work with. It's easy, straightforward, and it handles modern fuels well, and it doesn't really permeate a smell like some of the other rubber lines do. When paired with the Earl's Vapor Guard fittings, you just slide them in and crimp that hose down, and it's going to handle all of your modern fuel injection pressures that you need to do. Now, if you're doing an extreme turbocharged application where you may be seeing 90 psi of fuel pressure, a more traditional style AN hose would probably be better suited, but these work fantastic. They're going to do everything we need, and they're convenient to install. And with everything pre-assembled, ready to go, it's slam it into the car time. We slip it up into place, spin those straps underneath and tighten it down. And with those hoses dangling, it's going to make the rest of the plumbing incredibly easy.
While a lot of people will run a rubber line front to back, I'm a fan of using hard lines whenever possible. In a car that's going to be driven hard on the track, on the street, you have to consider something that may come up and hit a line, and a metal line is always going to hold up a little bit better than a rubber. I'm using the copper nickel 3/8 line here. It bends incredibly easy and is just real simple to work with. You can buy them in 25-foot coils. Now, something else I did have as a potential use for this car were 8-foot stainless steel sticks. The problem is 8 feet wasn't enough to reach front to back, and it's a pain in the butt to work with. Just take your time with this stuff, straighten it out, bend it around, move it as you need to, and you'll be able to set up a really nice fuel system. Also, once I get the fuel lines roughly bent how I want it, I'm mounting up a fuel filter and getting those tank lines mounted up to it, adding in our ferrules and fittings onto the hard line, and getting all of our tank plumbing complete. With all the fuel lines connected in the back, it is time to get the fuel lines connected to our regulator up front. And that's where I run into one boo-boo. We'll talk about that one a little bit later. So, put a pause in the fuel system, and I started to go ahead and lay out our engine wiring harness to see if we were missing any pieces, getting everything just roughly run where it needed to be and ready to connect.
Well, okay, let's go over everything and get you guys caught up. And I'm realizing, I guess, you know, we got too lucky in the last episode with our 7-liter stroker. We were bound to run into some conflict, I guess, today, because we've got time at least. We can fix these things. So we are back into the engine bay. We were underneath working. We've got our fuel lines kind of run up, ready to kind of be pinned and go to a fuel pressure regulator. And I unboxed my regulator and realized I had ordered a carburetor one. These engines run between 50 and 65 psi of fuel pressure. That's good for 9. 9 is not 60. So I had to stop doing our fuel system. We do have our quick connect fitting. Got everything kind of sort of in place to almost finish off our fuel system, but we can't. Now, all 3 of our engines run what's called returnless style. And the returnless systems in the factory pulse width modulated fuel pumps. You don't even really have regulators. You kind of sort of have one built into the fuel pump hat, or in the case of our LS sitting behind the welder over there, has a fuel filter that actually has a regulator bypass built into it. So technically, you don't normally see 2 fuel lines run all the way to the front, but we are doing that. We'll have our regulator here dropping our fuel pressure to correct, and we'll just have short whip over to there. And then it's on that side for the LS, and it's somewhere for the Coyote. I've also started laying out the harnesses. We've got the ignition harness kind of laid out. Realized I need to get the condenser filters for the ignition system. They did not come on my Hemi engine. Plugged in the drive-by-wire. I'm just loosely starting to lay things out, and it's helping me find a couple things. Like, one, I don't have the right Hemi fuel injector harness. I did just get notification that I have the Coyote system at the house now. And the Coyote is the one that has the computers and a couple extra harnesses. So there's a chance it's the same injector harness, but I do plan to probably just order one for the LS and for the Hemi. So everything just stays on the engine to try to streamline the process. One thing that is unique to the Hemi, if you're ever doing one of these, you need to get these ignition drivers. The Hemi uses dumb coils. So this converts that smart coil signal into something that will fire these. And I was trying to figure out where they plug in, and they're right there on the inboard side of the harness. So this will fish inside. It lives inside, plugs into the computer, does those things. This will go to our ignition harness. This is our throttle body connectors, which, because we're drive-by-wire, we don't use. I've got those sensors. Again, I'm starting to lay it all out to come up with a game plan. And seeing how I've hit, about a dozen blocks of ordering more parts, and I need a win this episode. So we're going to open up the door and we're going to take the trunk off of our parts donor and install it on Try Hard. Yes, I'm pretty confident we're going to name this Try Hard. I absolutely loved one of your ideas where LS Fest, it's Try Hard. Mo Party, it's Try Hard 2. And at the Intergalactic 4 Fest, it is Try Hard with a Vengeance. It kind of fits the insanity. Try Hard just seems to fit the best because that's what I'm doing. I'm try-harding to spend all the money in my bank account and then some. So anyway, it's warm. Let's open up the door where it's even more warm and get a trunk lid pulled off so we can end the episode on a big win. Although granted, we have a radiator in, we have a fuel tank in, we have lines built back there, run all the way up here. There's a ton of winning. But it can't be every episode that we discover a $7,000 stroker Hemi, Sometimes it's just the nuts and bolts of the build. So I'm going to turn a fan on and let's try to yank a trunk lid off.
With so many things fighting, we wanted a win. So we went out to our parts duster, pulled our trunk off, and brought it into the new car, or the old car, or the other car. And I quickly learned after sliding it in, there are little brackets you need to make sure to remove for your bolts to go into. Otherwise, you're going to be installing and removing the trunk several times, just like me.
Well, let's just say things really have not been going our way today. Sometimes it happens, and all I can say, and you can kind of tell by the little bit of everything at the end of this video, don't stop. Keep going forward. It's discouraging. You try to hit milestones. I wanted to have an exhaust hung, so we were ready to fab just the Hemi front section. Ran into a problem with that, unboxing it. Didn't get the X-pipe, the real big mid section. For some reason it's not in the box. We're getting that taken care of. Don't have everything I need to finish wiring the Hemi in. And I decided, you know what, let's just be safe. So I went over to the LS to make sure we had what we needed wiring-wise, and other than the known injector harness, that went smoothly. So we're gonna call it a win. We've got our LS ready to go into the car with some motor mounts being made later, although that's the last one to go in. So I need to sit down, make a big list of everything we need to order, hydraulic fittings to build the power steering lines, all of those good things. I need to start measuring for coolant hoses and get them going. The good news is the next episode is insane. I actually have to drive up because they're done with the fabrication, and we're picking up a major part for this car. Namely, it goes back there. It's so overkill, and I absolutely love it. So next time, we are going to get a rear differential in, and we're going to fit some brakes. We're going to show you the absolutely insane brakes we've got for this thing. And then we'll go back to wiring and finishing up plumbing. Oh, speaking of, we didn't ever really get to walk you down, but I had the real nice stainless steel lines that are a pain to bend, and you know what? The copper nickel, it works incredibly well. I've got it tucked up nice and tight. It's going to be clear of the exhaust. We swing up here, we got our fuel filter, and our line's coming over, and that's just the vent line that I still need to mount. But all I can tell you guys, when you're dealing with a project, even if you don't have a deadline, if you hit one of those snags, I get it. Trust me, it's discouraging. And when you're doing something this absolutely insane, there can be lots of snags, but don't let it stop you. Keep pushing on and just find that small win. Like, we've got a trunk lid on the car now. So we got some small wins, we've got some parts to order, and we're continually pushing on. I guess Cerberus the Tryhard. A lot of you like the name Cerberus, the mythological three-headed dog, and I really like Tryhard, so Cerberus Tryhard? Maybe? I think that's what's going to stick, but Again, I want to thank our paid partner, BetterHelp, again, for jumping on board. Don't ever feel like you're doing something wrong to need to get help to talk to someone. You're not in it alone, and they make it incredibly easy to find the right person to talk to and kind of vent and keep going forward. But it's warm. I'm going to turn the fans back on, download footage, and do my voiceover. So I appreciate you guys, as always, hanging out with us in the shop while we do absolutely crazy and extraordinarily questionable things that are wrecking my bank account. Pick up some shirts, please. It helps. I'm Jared, reminding you guys to always make questionable choices and really think hard if you think trying to race 3 events in 3 weeks with 3 engines is a good idea. Building a bare shell. What am I doing?